Hi, David. It's so great to have you back on Nonstop Rock Top. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Just kind of relaxing in the midst of a whole bunch of cool stuff going on. Today's the 30th anniversary of Rust in Peace. So we're just kind of just celebrating that. And, it's funny. To us, again, that album's been out for 30 years, so that's probably another album, but to the fans, it means everything. So it's cool to just be able to celebrate that,
You know what? I'm probably going to have to play it today. Like I have the vinyl reissue, so I may have to get that out tonight.
There you go. Good. I like it.
All right. So man, I have to admit, I'm pretty excited to hear your latest Ellefson album, which is entitled No Cover, which is a cover albums of songs I guess you had played back when you're starting out, or songs that you just really loved. With all that said, this album is also full of many guest players. Tell me a bit about how this album came to fruition.
Yeah, well, I had come home from Nashville. Dirk and I went down to record bass and drums on the Megadeth record in May, and we were there for about a week and a half or so, getting that done, basic tracks started. When I came home, I just shifted gears and went, okay, well, we're writing an Ellefson solo album that we were originally going to push out, later this year. And, Tom Hazard, who's my partner in my Ellefson industries, if you will, and also sings in the Ellefson solo band. We got to talk about it. I was like, look, there's no reason rushing to get an album out. If we can't tour to support it, it's just going to fall through the cracks and go away. And obviously, we're putting a lot of work in on it, and these songs are really turning out great. So let's shift gears for a minute, and we both agreed. It's like, look, let's just do a few covers. And like all things, it's kind of like, well, should we just put one cover out on a digital download, or should we just do an EP? And then, within 5 minutes, we probably had 5 or 6 songs, and then I just got the wheels turning, So literally for about a week, every day we'd have a conversation and come up with like 3 more songs, and now we have like 18 songs total on this record, and it it was fun because you're right. I mean, I went back to the songs that I either played growing up, or as a young musician wanted to play but wasn't good enough to play them, kind of stuff. And things that I was a fan of, things like Sheer Heart Attack from Queen, Not Fragile, BTO. I mean, Nazareth Love Hurts when I was growing up was like the quintessential rock ballad. That was like the November Rain of our day. What I mean? It was like the quintessential rock ballad. So it was fun to go back and just revisit this stuff. And of course, Tom, he's 10 years younger than me, so I always say he started buying records the year I quit buying them, because when I moved to LA in 1983, I was 18. I met Dave. We started Megadeth, and suddenly, then at that point, I was no longer just kind of buying records. First of all, I was too poor because I jumped from a nice, comfortable home in Minnesota to complete destitute poverty to start Megadeth. And I didn't have any money to buy records, but also radio in Los Angeles was great. There's a couple of big stations, so I could hear everything from Zeppelin and the Beatles all the way up to Holy Diver and, Iron Maiden Power Slam on the radio, So I didn't really have to buy records, but that's when Tom started buying records. So the stuff he was getting into was like, Def Leppard, Pyromania. Whereas the record that got me into Def Leppard was On Through the Night, which is, we paid the homage to them with the cover. We covered the cover on the cover of my album. And then we did the song Wasted, which, Yeah, which is a track that, me and my friend Greg Handovit, we played that growing up in cover bands in Minnesota, as well as like Love Me Like a Reptile by Motorhead. So, there's every song is on there for a reason. There's a bit of a story behind it. And it was great to just call friends up because, keep in mind, this is early June, so things are still locked down.
Yeah.
Most of our big tours, including Megadeth, Lamb of God, all these things are being pushed back a year. So everybody's just kind of sitting around really bumming out on the reality that, like, yeah, we're not doing anything for quite a while, And so it was fun to call everybody to say, hey, got an opportunity. You guys want to jump in and jam a tune with us? And that, I think, kept everybody excited, kept everybody enthused about music. And so it was, I think, if anything, this record is just an act of goodwill by all of us to pull our community together and keep everybody productive.
That's cool. What I thought was really intriguing is there's a few Megadeth alumni making appearances. Chuck Baylor, Jimmy DeGrasso, and of course current drummer Dirk Verburen.
Yeah.
But seeing Chuck Baylor's name after this long, I mean, he was in the So Far So Good era lineup, which I totally loved.
Yeah.
And he plays on Nazareth's Love Hurts and Motorhead's Love Me Like a Reptile. How was it that you managed to get Chuck to play on those tracks?
Well, I've been in touch with Chuck over the years, and he would come out to Megadeth shows, and he went through some health struggles, and but we've always remained friends, and he was always a friend to me and Dave, and he was never a guy that caused any trouble. He just sort of, once he was out of the band, he had a child that was born, and so he's raising his daughter, and she's wonderful. She's all grown up, and in a lot of ways kind of stayed in touch with me to kind of keep me in touch with Chuck.
Yeah.
And I kept encouraging Chuck. I said, listen, dude, like, get back in those drums and let's keep playing, man. Like, do something. I mean, it's like, you are Chuck Baylor, and so I would just always try to be encouraging to him. And last year I was out on the road. Megadeth shut down once Dave was diagnosed with his throat cancer, so we cleared the calendar of everything. But I had we were supposed to be doing a run with Ozzy Osbourne, and Ozzy had canceled his tour too. So suddenly our whole calendar just was wiped clear last year. And I had planned to release a book, which is my second memoir, More Life with Death, as well as my first solo album, Ellefson solo album called Sleeping Giants. And those were set to come out the last week of the Ozzy tour. And once that all went away, I called Tom and I just said, dude, let's book a tour. Let's book a run of dates to be out. We got product we need to be promoting on the road. And so that we discontinued a platform that Tom had created for me in 2018 called Bass Story. And Bass Story was essentially the concept of taking a solo bass clinic, instead of doing it in music stores, taking it into the nightclubs, having a backing band, being able to sell merch, and fans could buy beer and, kind of enjoy a night out like a concert, and it was very successful. And I've now done it around the world. I did it in Europe, South America, and it's really been a fun night. It's kind of a storyteller clinic kind of thing. And that's kind of what spun into the Ellefson solo band. Is one day I asked Tom, because we had a lot of the backing bands for me on Bass Story were artists that were on our Combat or EMP record label, and trying to kind of keep it all in house and help everybody kind of stand on each other's shoulders to help everybody get out on the road and promote their records. And one night I asked Tom to come up. I said, hey, I want to jam a Megadeth tune. And Tom's like, hey, I know like pretty much every Megadeth song. I said, all right, we'll get up here and stand over in the dark in the left and sing it for me, And he did, and he did a really good job. And and he's a fan, and everybody, Megadeth's one of these bands. I like it. We've always been one of the cool bands, and the legacy is so big, and it's just fun, So. That's where, Tom was like, look, why don't we go to the studio and start writing some songs? So we got our own material, and that's what led to this Ellefson solo band, turning into an original music project. And I agree. I mean, look, when I'm on tour with Megadeth, that's when I play the Megadeth songs, and I'm out doing my thing. I'd rather play my own songs, So, and then, of course, this cover record just opened up a whole other thing because everybody loves cover songs. And I think when you're putting out a new album, of original material, it's nice to have some cover songs in there because that's something at least everybody always knows, you know. And look, we've all been to these things where we go see some new band, even if it's from a famous guy like me. You see their new band, and you know, you're kind of always waiting, going, all right, when's he going to play a Megadeth song for me, you know, or when's he, you know,
Sure.
When's he going to play something I'm familiar with, you know, because people can only hold an attention for so long, regardless of how good the songs are, you know. So I think with this cover record, it'll be fun because we can throw in, you know, some real classics and some favorites and some things that, like, I'm looking forward to going out and playing, like, Love Machine by Wasp and like, Say What You Will by Fastway. I mean, these are awesome, too. Like, everybody knows those songs, you know? Yeah. So just as a fan of them myself, I'm looking forward to being on stage playing those just to watch. Because it's fun when you're on stage and you play something and the whole place lights up and goes, I know that song. This is great, you know? And that's a fun feeling as a performer.
Yeah, and that's funny. Actually, I was going to ask about Say What You Will, because that features Mark Slaughter's on it and Tesla drummer Troy Luccketta.
Yep.
And I'm super excited about that song. Now, was that one of the songs that Tom really liked, or were you both fans of that one?
Actually, that was one I suggested because you know, when I first moved to LA, that song had just started to come on the radio. So 1983 was like Quiet Riot's #1 on MTV.
Yeah.
Motley Crue, of course, is taken off. Rat, Out of the Cellar had just come out or was just coming out. Queensryche had Queen of the Reich was on kind of like the evening late night radio shows. You know, they were the cool band out of Seattle. Armored Saint was starting to break out of LA. Metallica, of course, you know, Metallica hadn't even put out Kill 'Em All yet. Yeah. So, you know, there's all this great stuff on the radio. And so the Fastway tune came out, and you know, the story was it was Fast Eddie Clarke from Motorhead and Pete Way from UFO, and I was like, wow, how cool. So when I heard it, I thought it was Pete Way. In fact, I thought it was Pete Way up until like just recently, until I heard the story that actually I read Pete's book, and he gave the details of it, of how he was under contract with Chrysalis, and he and Fast Eddie, you know, Fast Eddie seemed like he was kind of putting the band together and wanted to do something with Pete, and but I guess if Pete couldn't because he was still under contract with Chrysalis, so they had to get another bass player, and on it went. But you know, but when I first heard it, I thought it was Pete Way, and you know, I love Pete Way and UFO. I mean, Pete's one of the cool rock star bass players, you know, and so as much as we didn't do a UFO song or anything like that, you know, it is interesting. You know, Pete passed away this summer, of course.
That's right.
And look, in my heart, it's kind of an ode to him through that song. And again, he was still alive when we did it, when we recorded it. And also another one was, you know, Steve Priest from Sweet had passed away, and just, you know, a couple months ago. So I was really stoked to do that song. Yeah, and I hit up Todd Kearns, who plays bass for Slash and Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators. And I first met Todd. He lived over in Vegas, and I first met him. He was in a little cover band around town called Sin City Sinners, and he was playing guitar and singing. And he's just a wonderful guy, super talented dude, and he freaking nails the vocals on that. I mean, that Sweet stuff is not easy to sing, and he just knocked it out of the park, man. So, you know, they're just kind of interesting threads of where we got people from. Of course, Troy Luccketta and I have been buddies. Mark Slaughter and I pretty much grew up together in the business, pretty much side by side, with Slaughter and Megadeth careers in the late 80s and the early 90s. In fact, it was funny because Vinnie Vincent was out with Iron Maiden. No, they were out with Alice Cooper, and then Megadeth took their spot when they came off the tour.
Right.
And then before that, they were out with Iron Maiden. A year later, they were out with Iron Maiden, and then Megadeth went out with Iron Maiden. So, I mean, we were like, you know, kind of ping-ponging back and forth on tours back in the late 80s. And of course, he leaves Vinny's band and starts Slaughter. And, you know, so it's funny how our you know, histories between all of us. And same with the Tesla guys. I remember it was on the Alice Cooper tour, because we dropped off the Alice tour to go to Europe to go promote the Peace Sells album in early 87. We were on tour with Alice. So Vinnie Vincent was out with them, then Megadeth, and then we went to Europe and Tesla took over. And then we finished the Alice Cooper tour. This would have been the Constrictor tour. We finished at Long Beach Arena, in late spring of '87, and so that would be Alice, Megadeth, and Tesla. So that was how long I've known Frank Hannon and Troy.
Yeah.
So our history just goes so far back with these guys, and of course, then a year later, Doro's got her band Warlock, and she's out on tour with Megadeth, and so far so good. So what tour, and so that's I've known her, so it's great to get her to participate on "Love Me Like a Reptile" and "Sheer Heart Attack."
Yeah.
So it's just it's sort of a mosaic tapestry of friendships here on this record.
I'm kind of curious I cannot wait to hear her do Motorhead. Like, I'm just curious to hear how it's going to sound. Like, I saw the track list.
Here's what's kind of interesting about it is, first we asked her, I wanted to hear a female voice on Sheer Heart Attack because Bumblefoot sings it and it's great. And then we added Tom in, and Tom, because of the nature of his voice, is much lower. He sort of anchors a lot of these tracks really well. He and Mark Slaughter singing in Fastway sounds great, Mark's got the high voice, Tom takes the low. Same with Sheer Heart Attack. Ron has a nice, good mid-range and
cool.
and can hit some of the upper stuff. Tom anchors the bottom, and then so we added Doro on top on the choruses and on some of the verse stuff. And then we asked her, I said, "Hey, would you mind? You want to do a Motorhead track?" And she goes, "Well, which one?" And I said, "Love Me Like a Reptile." She goes, "Oh my God, what a great choice!" And because, everybody, we've all played Ace of Spades 20 million times, And so I think the fun thing with this record is that we went for the not so obvious tracks of very famous bands. And yet they're not such deep album cuts that no one gets it. They're cool deep cuts, I think.
And it's very cool.
So like with with Motorhead, so she was good friends with Lemmy, So for her, it was kind of an ode and a sort of kind of a nice homage to Lemmy and her friendship with him. And I also hit my friend Greg Handovit. We were in bands. We grew up together in Minnesota. He and I both made the trek out to L.A. We had the apartment right underneath Dave. He was only 6 weeks out of Metallica. And when he and I met Dave, that was when Megadeth. We formed the Megadeth together. So Greg has long been out of the music business. He actually went to law school. He went to the Navy and then he went to law school.
Wow.
And he's a lawyer in Mankato, Minnesota. Yeah, but he's still got his band Kubla Khan. Like, he reformed Kubla Khan, which is his band that he had after Megadeth.
Yeah.
And so he's still out playing a little bit. And so I said, "Hey, man, throw down the lead vocal and a solo and rip a rhythm track for me on guitar." And so it's funny, on Motorhead, you hear Tom, Greg, and Doro, like, all singing together this sort of gang vocal. And it's so friggin' cool, man. It's you hear it and you just go, "My God, this is like so obvious. It's so cool,"
Yeah. Now, another interesting title on the album is a cover of Fights Nailed to the Gun. I mean, that's a stellar lineup. Andrew Freeman on vocals, Jimmy DeGrasso on drums, and Russ Parris, or as he's known in Steel Panther, as Satchel.
Yeah.
And that's somewhat of a newer song. I mean, it's from the 90s more, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What made you decide to do that song?
I'll tell you what. I had a band in the 2000s called F5.
Right.
And it was a bit more of a kind of a modern active rock kind of band. And, but it was cool. It was heavy. And we did a cover of Nailed to the Gun with Jimmy DeGrasso playing on it. And I literally were putting together these songs. So this is like, second week of June or something, right? And a notification pops across my phone from YouTube that says, "Check out F5's Nailed to the Gun." And I went, "Oh my God, we should totally redo that song again." Cool. And so I hit Andy Martingelli, our guitar player who lives over in Italy. I said, "Dude, whip together a Pro Tool template for Nailed to the Gun. Let's bang that one out." He goes, "Oh my God, it's freaking awesome." And Tom, of course, was stoked. And that's when Tom right away said, "My God, we gotta get Russ on this."
Yeah.
And I had just seen Russ earlier this year over in Europe. When we were over there with Five Finger, Steel Panther was touring around the same time, so we got to hang up in Norway together. And he had played for me and Frank Bello. We played on Altitudes and Attitude record for a song that I wrote called Leviathan. And quite honestly, he helped turn it into the song that it is. I just had a bass riff and with an arrangement and drums to it, but I was like, as Jay Russ and our producer said, "Look, let me hit Russ and see if he can throw something on her." My God, he took it from a basically Dawn Patrol, like a bass and drum riff. He took it from that and turned it into this. Sounds like something that could be on the first Michael Schenker solo record. You know, it's just amazing. And so I just absolutely love Russ's playing, and it's just fantastic. You know, so. And the fact that he was in Fight. I mean, he's an original member of Fight.
Yeah, so. And which is kind of odd because he was in War and Peace with Jeff Pilson, and then all of a sudden he's in Fight, and now Steel Panther thing, right? So he's it's been kind of vast, like the musical climate that he's played in. You know, like Fight was a really heavy band, and War and Peace was kind of more of a Dokken type of thing, and then Steel Panther is Steel Panther, right? So
yeah. Yeah, well, it just goes to show. Look, he's a versatile player. He's a fantastic player. He looks great. He plays great.
Yeah,
he's a super awesome dude. And look, he's learned how to make a living as a guitar player. You know, I mean, there's a lot that can be said for his adaptability. And now today more than ever, if you want to even be in the game playing music at all, you have to be pretty versatile. I mean, even the Quarantine Jam YouTube and Zoom videos that you see online, people are, crossing genres and playing with different people, and it's a creative time, man. I mean, I think it's probably, I found it with this cover record. I mean, this cover record is probably one of the most fun records I've ever done in my whole career, because of the vast variety of songs, the different players that we all, of course, emulated. You know, I mean, the amount of different bass players, everybody from Steve Priest, Ian Hill, to, the Nazareth guy to, Bachman Turner Overdrive. I mean, really did. But, at the same time, it was comfortable for me because I grew up learning to play to these guys.
Yeah.
Yet, to sit down and really, commit a performance that, quite honestly, they might actually hear, was a whole other thing. It's one thing when you're sitting in your basement in Jackson, Minnesota at 16, you're like, okay, these guys are never going to hear me play. But now, there's a part of you as a fan, you go, like, Brian May is probably going to hear Sheer Heart Attack, Yeah. I'm going to send a copy of it over to the Sweet Camp, to just say, hey, this is our honorarium to Steve Priest, and may he rest in peace. Here's Sweet F.A., and so I want it to be good. I don't want to go, oh, man, he butchered the bass line. What's this guy doing,
No, that's cool. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody. There's been a lot of sweet covers off of Desolation Boulevard, but I'm not sure that I've ever heard someone else do Sweet F.A. I can't think off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's such a, to me, it's probably one of the most, metal of the song. I mean, what a great album. I mean, that album is just top to bottom, just kick-ass. And the cover's amazing. I mean, when I moved to L.A. in 83, and I drove down Sunset Boulevard, and there's Tower Records on the right, there's that Arco station on the left, and there's Gil Turner's Liquor. I mean, dude, that's the cover of Desolation Boulevard. It's that shot. And then, of course, they clip the guy standing there. And even when I met Dave, I was like, oh my God, you look like the guy in Sweet, with the jean jacket and the sunglasses up in your hair. So I was like, dude, I'm suddenly in the middle of a Desolation Boulevard album cover here.
That's pretty cool. That's funny. Now Charlie Benante from Anthrax is also on the album, which I think is really cool. He plays on 2 tracks, The Dead Kennedys Holiday in Cambodia, and Cheap Tricks off Vider. How do we pronounce that again?
Vider Zane. Yes. Vider Zane.
There we go. Yeah. So
well, it's funny.
Oh.
Charlie, it's funny. Tom was talking to Charlie about a completely unrelated thing. They were having a chat about some other business stuff, and I think during one of those calls, Charlie, has expressed his frustration that it's like, how long can you try to get everybody together when you just keep getting shut down left and right? Scotty, of course, lives in L.A. Frank Bellows out in New York. Charlie lives in Chicago. So, he's trying to put Anthrax writing sessions and stuff together, so we all know, the challenges this year of trying to get together, especially when band members live in hot spots of the country, and with COVID. So, Tom just extended to him. So look, want to throw down some tracks? And he was like, totally. So he was totally up for it, and he played. I think he played on 3 tracks actually.
I might have missed that. I might have missed one.
Yeah, I forgot the other one, and
I think,
pardon me, this is
the listing that I had. Actually, there was 2 more songs that said TBA on. So
yeah. Maybe that's it. Yeah. And so I mean, Charlie came in. I hit up Dave Lombardo. And then he came back and said, look, we got these couple songs left, and he went for Riff Raff from AC/DC. And again, Riff Raff was the very first AC/DC song I heard because I bought the live If You Want Blood, You Got It with Bon Scott.
Yep.
So that was, the needle drop. I brought it home. I bought albums then just based on how rad the album covers were. There's Angus stabbing a guitar through his chest. I'm like, all right, I'm buying that one.
Cool.
Kiss Alive, Judas Priest, Unleashed to the East. I mean, these album covers sold me, on even Cheap Trick. You got kind of the 2 good-looking rocker dudes on the front, and you got like kind of the 2 goofy guys on the back, with Rick Nielsen and Buddy Carlos. And I was like, all right, this is a fun band. I got to check this out, but yeah, Riff Raff was the needle drop, and I was just like, let's do that one. That's a cool song to do. And we're not doing Back in Black or Highway to Hell, some of the kind of more obvious AC/DC tracks. So, so that's why I was, so yeah, I got, it's just fun to be jamming with my buddies and making music. We all grew up together in our various bands, and we pretty much all share the same record collection, which I think is, what's pretty cool about No Cover is that these are songs we all grew up with, depending on our age,
Yeah, and that's how I kind of feel about it, because that's why I'm so excited to hear the whole thing, because I'm like, these are all songs I grew up listening to over the years. And I mean, when you discover bands and you're like, and then I saw the whole track list and I'm like, holy cow, I cannot wait to get this.
Yeah. No, it's good, man. I think it's a good collection, And like I said, Tom, 10 years younger than me, so he picked, Free Will Burning from Judas Priest, whereas I would have probably picked something off, Hellbent for Leather.
Yeah.
I threw that one to him, and so Free Will Burning. Same with he wanted to do a Wasp song. He wanted Wasp, so I chose Love Machine. That's probably, my favorite Wasp song. And
which is a great song.
Yeah, exactly. And of course he knew Fastway. I mean, that's came out right as he was getting into buying records and in that era. And again, we talked about Def Leppard, and, for me, Wasted, that was the song I played growing up. And all my buddies, Frank Hannon, my guys were all my age. That's the tune we all grew up with. Charlie Benante, all of us had Wasted or Rocks Off. That's the tracks that we all just immediately go to,
Yeah, and it's funny because listening to Wasted and hearing Frank play it, for some reason, as soon as I heard that opening riff, I instantly thought, maybe it was the way Frank played it, or the riff, I kind of thought of Rock Bottom by UFO because Tesla had done that song. I was like, This is just kind of perfect for Frank to be playing. It's just, it totally fit. You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny, Wasted, yeah, it is sort of the riff is derivative of Rock Bottom. I kind of thought the same thing when I heard it.
Yeah.
When I was like 15 when I heard it, or however old I was, I went, oh, it kind of sounds a little bit like UFO. And that was funny when I met Dave and I heard No Life Till Leather, Metallica's demo of Mechanics.
Yeah.
And the tight cymbal choke hits, gone to gone to gone to gone to gone to gone, like those tight cymbal chokes. Lars did a lot of that.
Yep.
In the early Metallica stuff, and I thought, especially Mechanics, I'm like, oh my god, this sounds like Wasted. So. It's funny how 3 generations from UFO to Def Leppard to Metallica, how 3 generations sort of all, got inspired by that one, kind of that one riff, and that one, that one sound. There's something that's it's like a common theme throughout metal riff type music.
Yeah, and what I find funny about Wasted is when you think of that as Def Leppard in 1980 when they're first starting out, 7 years later, it's kind of a totally different band, right? It's like the music's it's kind of gone in a different direction.
Yeah, I talked to Vivian Campbell. They played Last in Line to the show with Megadeth in Milan, probably 2016 or 17. And Dave had just mentioned, he said, God, we should do a tour with Def Leppard, like Def Leppard and Megadeth. How cool would that be? And I mentioned it to Viv, and he said, he goes, well, Joe Elliott really doesn't do too much of the, new wave or British heavy metal stuff anymore. And, off the first album, and they had huge success being more of a kind of a mainstream pop rock band. So I get it, believe me, I get it. But, it's kind of like with Megadeth, people want to hear stuff off Killing Is My Business, and we don't play anything off that. I mean, we do once in a while, we'll pull Mechanics and Rattlehead or something off of that record, but we don't go too deep in it. So I get it. I mean, it's funny. I'll see little clips of Phil Collins online, and one of the first riffs he'll play is Wasted, and he didn't even play on it. So you can tell even he's in Def Leppard and he's a fan of it, So it's funny how, there's these songs from our own catalog that sometimes, become these sort of obvious cult classics. And Killing Is My Business is one with Megadeth, and even with, when Sean Drover was playing drums in Megadeth, he would always talk about Euthanasia. And I hadn't listened to Euthanasia in years. And I finally started listening. I started listening to it when I was flying on the airplane. All right, let me download it on my iTunes. Let me give it a listen again. Because I hadn't heard it in so long, and I listened to it, and I went, wow, it is pretty good, I mean, I remembered it being a great album. It was one I liked, but I just hadn't heard it in a long time. And when I went back and I started listening to it, and things like Addicted to Chaos and Family Tree,
Blood of Heroes. Which were great songs. Just the structuring and just how they grooved, and it was different than, say, Rust in Peace or So Far, but I think in terms of songwriting, I thought they were brilliant.
Yeah, and and that's what I think it took me back to. And I think there was this intention inside of Megadeth for so many years to move away from these more kind of mainstream verse chorus songs. Yeah. So we kind of went more, digging back into the thrashier stuff of the catalog, but so I get it. We all have things in our past that maybe we overlook for various reasons, and then all of a sudden the fans start asking for it, and then you pull it out again. You're like, oh yeah, yeah. And it kind of brings back the feeling of like, yeah, that's right. That's I remember this feeling when we were writing this and when we were doing this, and that's it's inspiring.
Yeah, because I recall I bought the VHS of the making of Euthanasia, and you guys had done that in a storage type of thing, and you built the studio in there, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Yeah,
and that was so cool. And I mean, I'm a big fan of Max Norman's production anyway, so, and watching that. And I think that was the first tour I actually saw Megadeth. So I saw you guys at Maple Leaf Gardens with Corrosion of Conformity, and a bunch of my buddies and I went, and it was standing room only, and it was awesome. So I mean, sometimes you attribute those albums to the memories that you have as well too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what a lot of this is. I mean, it's sort of pulling out childhood memories or a memory of a moment in time, first date, hey, I'm out with my buddies, whatever it may be, and that's, I think, again, kind of bringing it back to No Cover. That's what this is for me, and for Tom. Celebrating songs that we both liked, songs that our friends all liked, and we come together as a community. And in a year when otherwise nothing is happening, for most of us, we just pull out our record collection and dig in and go have some fun.
Yeah. So to purchase the album, there was a link to it, and I was on it today, but for some reason I can't seem to get to it. Yeah, which was really weird. My computer keeps saying, "Oh, this is not there." So, is that the only way to purchase it right now?
Well, you will be able to buy it on Bandcamp, but it will be. We were originally going to push it out in October, but then Ward Records in Japan came on board, and so did Ear Music in Europe.
Yeah.
And so in order to synchronize the release dates, we actually had to push it back to November 20th.
Okay.
But we are going to keep pushing out. There's at least one more single we're going to push out.
Cool.
Before that, if not a couple. at least here in America, to just sort of keep the narrative going on the story of the record here until it comes out. And we do have some dates. We've got 3 dates we're going to be doing with Saliva down in Texas and Louisiana over the Halloween weekend.
Nice.
And might even be booking some other dates here through the Midwest, the kind of Iowa, Minnesota, Chicago, Wisconsin area. We're seeing if we can put those together for November. So, because we want to be out, promoting this record and playing, and some of these smaller shows are easier to book and facilitate than the big, larger, arena level concerts. Those are much more problematic, obviously, with social distancing. The smaller places are a little bit easier. So we're hoping to kind of get down into the nooks and crannies here and get out and blow it up and make some noise here.
Yeah, unfortunately, we up here in Canada, there's nothing. Like no venues are having anything really. I did for the most part. I mean, no bands are coming up here because they're more or less their borders closed, and so hopefully next year that might happen. But
exactly.
Now, is it available on vinyl and CD?
Yep, vinyl and CD, of course, all the digital platforms. But we definitely, it's a double CD, 4-sided vinyl, so double vinyl. Awesome. Yeah, so it's and that's a big part of this. And, and I give credit to Tom, because I'll say, look, why don't you just make it digital and be done? They go, are you kidding? There's no way. We got to do vinyl. At one point, we're talking about doing cassette. So, because I buy everything online. I'm just like, I just, hit iTunes or whatever, download it. So I got it on my phone for travel. But Tom, he's a kid, so he loves the whole.
I do too.
And so he gets credit for that, and so he spends a lot of time doing the credits and doing all this stuff in a way that just, that feels like it's 1983 all over again, which God bless him,
Kudos to him. And I can't wait to see that cover on the vinyl. I'm excited about that too.
Yeah. Yeah, because the cover of the cover. Yeah.
Yeah, the cover of the covers. Oh, that's cool. Well, Dave, I want to thank you for joining me again. It's always a pleasure, and I hope this album does well. I think it will. I think the people are going to really dig it. I mean, from what I've heard and looking at track listings, I'm super stoked about it. So.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, we put a lot of time into it. Like I say, I was exhausted when it was done, but it's one of the most rewarding and one of the most fun records I've ever done. I mean, it's just really was.
That says a lot.
Was a labor of love. Yeah. So, and a big kudos to all of our friends who joined in and put their time into it as well. So, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it.
Okay, David. Thank you very much. You have a good night.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.